Yeah.
That's a good one. I forgot you were hanging out. Alyssa was telling me she saw your story and was saying that you were hanging out with Vincent and doing some jitsu.
Yeah, we were doing all sorts of stuff.
And I was like, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, here's the panorama from the summit.
Jeez.
Yeah, zoom in on it.
Oof. Oh yeah, I see the city down there.
Dude.
What's that, like 10, 11 flights of stairs?
According to my watch, 289.
Flights?
Yep.
Oof.
289 flights. It is 2.5 miles up. Like you go, it is
like vertically or
no.
Like the hike.
The hike is only 2.5 miles. It's just under 3 miles. Like,
jeez.
Total. I think it's 4,500 feet of elevation gain over 2.5 miles.
So that's like steep.
Dude, 65-degree angles like the whole time.
Hold on, let me do my math really quick. Find out what angle that is.
Yeah, dude. It's like I was taking videos where like I'd hold it like with the slope so it just looked flat, and then I would turn it to what it was actually like, and it was like, oh, dude. So the other thing is they got like way more snow. We're probably filming now, so I just got back from Salt Lake literally today. So
like this morning?
Yeah, no, This afternoon. Oh. I was on the mountain not even 24 hours ago.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, dude. That's what I'm talking about.
You're such an adventurer.
Yeah, to tell you what. Yeah. So, literally, we probably, honestly, 24 hours ago, we stepped off the mountain. Like, we got back to the car 24 hours ago. So it's about, maybe I'm wrong. I think it's a little longer than that. I think it's 3.5 because I think it's 7 miles round trip. Mm-hmm. But it is 4,500 feet of picture time.
Look cute.
I feel cute. 4,500 feet of elevation gain over 3.5 miles. So if I sound a little weird, I have altitude sickness because turns out my body was not acclimated to that at all.
But you're looking cute. You're feeling cute.
I feel cute. I'm drinking a Gatorade Heavy. I did a little Afrin. Oh, you look cute too.
Thanks.
Did a little Afrin in the car, and we are out here. So
making it happen.
Dude, yeah. It was a blast, but like I was telling you right before we started, it was legitimately, it was the most challenging thing physically I have ever done in my life. Dude. So the thing is Salt Lake is getting snow way later than they normally do. Mm-hmm. So normally you're kind of getting close to the time where there's not really any snow on the mountains anymore. Mm-hmm. There was probably, once we actually hit the snow line, which was like, the snow line's like probably 2,000 feet up. So it's like you get 2,000 feet of just like rock trail.
Mm-hmm. So like halfway?
Yeah. And then 2,000 feet of like elevation gain, but probably like 1.5 miles of legitimately 6 to 8 feet of snow, like across the whole thing. Like we had snowshoes. I
was going to ask, were you guys prepared for the snow? Or are you just like...
We knew the snow was going to be there. So like, yeah, so we were not as prepared as we should have been. That is for sure. But we had snowshoes. You couldn't use them too much because so it wasn't too bad in the morning. So going up was fine because it was cold enough in the morning that the snow was like pretty solid. You could walk on it. So it's super surreal to be walking on top of 10 feet of snow. Yeah. Right. So like you'll see, and you have to like post hole everything because like if you're not careful, and it happened, especially it happened going up, I don't know, probably 6 or 7 times where it's like you even check a footing and you step in and it just like you sink straight down to your knee or straight down to your hip, like in snow.
And that's not, I'm sure that's really easy to get out of.
Dude, for real. So then like you're doing a fucking pistol squat to like get out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so going up's really not too bad because like, I say that like it sucked. Don't get me wrong, because you're literally walking like at a 65-degree upward angle for the majority of the time once you hit the snow. So you're going, but getting up's not too bad. Like I was pretty torqued at that point. Like your air just drops tremendously as you like get up, and you're already at like 4,000 feet in Salt Lake. So Salt Lake's already pretty high elevation. And so it's like, luckily we did the climb at the end of the trip and not the beginning of the trip, or like I'd probably be in the hospital.
Yeah, no, I know that feeling of like being up at like 10,000 square feet. Like you walk from your car through the parking lot and you're out of breath.
Dude, on my watch, because I like tracked it on my watch, I averaged over 11 hours, 164 beats per minute.
Jeez.
For 11 straight hours.
You were.
So when I say this is the hardest thing I have done physically in my entire life, this is the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life.
That's steady state cardio for 11 hours.
Dude. It's red line cardio.
Is that okay?
No, I don't know. But that is pretty close to your like peak heart rate. So we like get up, you finally kind of get to this ridge, and the ridge is like, it's beautiful. So you can finally like, you get over like the first part of the mountain and you can see you've got a pretty good view, but then you can kind of like turn around and there's the like actual summit is behind you. But the problem with the actual summit is at the very end, once you reach that ridge, you have 750 feet of elevation gain over a quarter mile. Literally, you're not full like face climbing, but you are like hands and feet like crawling.
You're not just doing that on your feet.
No, not even close. Like I'm talking like you have to like kick your boots into this. Like we really needed spikes and we didn't have spikes. That was the biggest problem.
Yeah.
But you are literally kicking into the snow, compressing it down, and just hoping it holds while you take your next step.
Jeez.
And so this is not Pikes Peak where like there's a parking lot at the top.
Yeah.
Right. So you get up, you literally climb up, like you're scrambling essentially, like so you're scrambling over rock, but again you're talking like this is probably like a 75-degree angle where it's like a pretty like if you miss you're sliding a ways and you're just hoping that slide goes in the correct direction, because if you go this way you're alive, if you go that way you are definitely dead, like dead. So you go up. If I didn't have Vincent with me, no way I would have done this, because like Vincent's so like calming because he's just a sociopath where he's just like, no, Tommy, just one foot after the other and you'll be fine. And I'm like, all right, like I've come all this way, I might as well. So you get up this thing, you have to face climb around like a rock, this big rock that's up there. And Vincent loves to tell you as you're face climbing around this rock and walking on this snow that he's like, I climbed this in the summer last year. It's actually 10 feet drop underneath you, but there's enough snow. So hopefully it holds as you're like walking across this ridge, like hugged against this. And literally you're just walking on snow and hoping that it holds. That gets you to another ridge line where you then do it again, but it's even more sketchy. Then you get up top, and so that's the final summit. So that's where I like took all those a bunch of the pictures. Unbelievable up there, right? But Vincent is again telling you like, hey, be careful, because the actual summit is about 2.5 feet wide. And when you're up there and it's covered in snow, it looks like it's 6 feet wide. So he's like, if there's not a step, do not step on it. Because like, if this gives like 3 of the 4 angles that you're up there is 1,000+ feet falls. Like, so you have the way that you like face climbed, like your face is in the snow climbing up to this top point. Every other, like way down is dead. So again, Vincent's like, it's no big deal, Tommy, just one foot after the other. So we get up there, and so he's like, he's explaining, he's like, do not step anywhere besides on this tiny little like where you can tell people have been walking, because he's like, It might hold, it might not. Like, and in fact, we were up there for probably 15 minutes, and he was like, "We should probably get down. Like, the sun's come out quite a bit. Like, who knows what angled, like you step wrong in the wrong place and this has started to melt, it gives."
And where you could be stepping where someone else stepped before and it was fine. Yeah. But now, not so fine.
Because like you're walking on a path, and he's explaining how like in the summer, this is actual like straight vertical rocks that you're like scrambling over.
Yeah.
And so he's like, so we're walking, and under us is like super rock with like deep holes in them. He's like, I don't know. Like, and so we're up there, and I'm laughing because you still have service up there, surprisingly enough. There's a lot of ski mountains around. So like they push it up there.
Yeah.
But like Laurel's texting me, and she's like, "Set up your phone and take a picture together." And I'm like, I can't do that. It's like
we are like hugging.
Literally, as we're switching spots, we are like hugging against each other to just like take some pictures.
There's room for me, Vincent, but not a tripod.
No, right. But yeah, so then like all of that is great. We get up in about 4 hours. And so we're like, cool, like we're doing pretty good on time. Mm-hmm. Except once you like we started coming down, the problem is by the time we were coming down, now it's like 1:30, like almost 2 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So it's probably 1:30, and it is 72 degrees in Salt Lake that day, which means it's like 55 degrees on the summit of the mountain.
Jeez.
With the 10 feet of snow. So we're in t-shirts. Like there's people up there in shorts. Like it's crazy. But the snow is starting to melt like pretty heavily. So we're like, we kept talking because like you're at the summit and you're just like, okay, this is super cool. But like, I can't even really like be happy about getting here because I don't know if we're getting down. Like we actually don't know. Like Vincent, when you look at Vincent and Vincent is nervous.
Oh, that's
like,
not good.
Anybody doesn't know Vincent is like, he's ready to die anytime. And when he's got a nervous look and he's like, yeah, I'm just not going to worry about that till we get to it. I'm like, fuck. Yeah. So now all the face climbing on the snow you're now doing backwards. So it's like you're kicking in and you still have to face like the snow. And so you're holding on to snow, like hoping to find like good, like previous things you climbed up with, like good, like holes, like boot marks or whatever. And so like, but now every third or fourth one gives as soon as you put your weight on it. And so like, now we've got walking sticks and we're literally like shoving them like almost like spikes, like ice climbing, like axes or whatever those are called. But you're just like digging it in. So it's like anything to hold. And there's this one part. There's this one part where when you're coming back down, where it's like the only way that makes sense is to go right. And then you cut back a really sharp left. The reason why you call it back a really sharp left is if you slide right, like it's done for, like it's game over, right? And like you're not, like they're not getting your body down, that kind of spot, like it's not good, right? And so you're like essentially, and it's a pretty steep, like you could maybe stop yourself, maybe, but so you're going and then you cut left. But when you're coming down, it's really hard to see that spot, right? And so apparently both Vincent and I, at that spot where you make the turn, both put our foot and both of us had the snow give under us. Ooh. And both were just like, oh, okay. And then you just like crawl to the left and you're just like, all right. And then you're like coming down rock that like, and you're soaking wet, like everything, like your boots are super wet on wet rock. And so now you're like trying to do that. And so then you finally get back down to the ridge and you're like, okay, cool. We can kind of like start being excited for the fact that like,
we made it.
We like you couldn't, like we're literally up there and you're just like, okay, cool. Yeah, this is pretty cool. I mean, it's beautiful, but like, but at what cost,
We're only halfway through.
Yeah, like this is only cool if we make it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then you get down off of that and the rest of it's not really sketchy. But the problem is that like every, 500 feet in elevation you go down, it gets 5 degrees warmer. So all that 10 foot of snow that we were able to walk on top of on the way up is now totally giving way. So like the snowshoes weren't even working. Like you would step on the snowshoe and your whole foot would just like, you'd still like probably, I would say every 5th or 6th step, you'd go to your hip. And at this point, I've been on the mountain for like 7 hours.
Right.
And so like I'm the most nauseous, exhausted, like, dude, look at this. Look at the color difference between my shoulders and my neck.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So been smoked by the sun.
Yeah.
If anybody at home who didn't see, I am very much 2 different colors right now.
Got that tan line.
Dude. So it's like every 3rd or 4th like step, legitimately, like you're just down to your knee or down to your hip.
Oof.
And it's like, all right, like you're like, creating as much surface area to like climb yourself out, and you're like falling all the time. And so, dude, it took us like 4 hours to get up and then like 7 hours to get back down.
Jeez.
Because of the snow. And dude, it was the most brutal thing I have. Like, yeah. So fun little story to start. How you guys doing?
Dude, what is it about? I feel like it's just like human nature. Maybe like, I guess maybe not for everybody.
I know what you're getting at. Yes, I peed on the mountain multiple times. I now remember.
Good for you. Yeah. But what is it about like human nature that you just see something tall and you're like, I need to be on top of it.
Yeah.
I need to get up there.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. Maybe does everybody have that? Ryan, do you feel that way? Yeah, I do too.
Yeah,
I totally do.
I had a spell in high school. I hope my mom doesn't listen to this. Not high school, in college.
Yeah, Laurel would. Yeah. She was like, "How was it? It was perfect. It was totally great the whole time. Like
Super safe.
Yeah, like I literally, if I wasn't, I'm sorry, I'm cutting you off, but it was like if you literally were not focused strictly on your next step, like you would panic.
I think people don't realize like how dangerous it is to climb. Like obviously, like Mount Everest is known for being like the mountain that like you've got like a 50% chance of surviving getting to the top and back. Or it's probably not that much, but like it's extremely high. But I remember being in college and like my go-to for a little bit was like when we'd be out drinking and I would just find stuff to climb.
Oh yeah.
until like one time I climbed a water tower, one that is just one big skinny pole. It looks like from a distance, it looks like like if you scaled down a pencil, right?
Yeah, right.
So you get to the top and it's like 4 feet wide, and I'm like too scared to even like stand up because there's like nothing to grab onto.
Literally, dude.
And I climbed down and I'm like, nope. I think I'm good now. And I looked at that thing in the morning and I was like, no, yeah, I'm not going to climb anything anymore like that. I was up there. But yeah, that's, I have less of that urge now.
Yeah, dude, that is, and it's funny that you say that because like, I remember, so this is standing on top of that thing going down to the second one. That's where you have to face climb that down. Oof. And to the left there, you can't really tell, but you see how in the middle there's that little like little place that looks like a ridge in the middle. Mm-hmm. To the left of that is 1,000+ foot drop.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not.
It doesn't look like a place that you would feel like I would have gotten to the ridge by myself and been like, oh, this is as high as anybody ever goes.
Who's that? Was it you and Vincent?
Yeah. So that's us at the rock portion of it.
Oh yeah, you're climbing that.
Yeah,
like not straight up like having to like climb
like a rope or something. Like it's not rock climbing.
Yeah,
but
but you are almost at.
That's almost at the very bottom of it.
Jeez.
Yeah. So this is and I'll stop after this. But this is the straight. That's the angle. Dude. Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the humans that just make us want to do that.
I don't know. It's taken us very far in life.
Dude, for real though. Well, You get
Some
up
might
there.
say we've reached new heights.
There we go.
That was there. I
we
had
go.
to put it
There
in.
you go.
Yeah. Were you? Did Laurel go out there with you?
So we went because Laurel had a volleyball tournament.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so Laurel had a volleyball tournament, and so it was also her birthday weekend, and so
Yeah.
we got to go out there. We were out there for 4 days, and so did some volleyballing, ate a bunch of different restaurants and stuff, and then yeah, the last day yesterday was my day to go spend the day with Vincent. So
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
How's Vincent doing?
dude, he's doing great, man. He is doing very Vincent-y things, which is always like super funny.
Yeah.
Because you will appreciate this so much because Vincent genuinely might be like top 5, if not the smartest person I know. But like,
I listed him as one of the smartest people I know in my TRIAD interview.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the boy can't spell the word receipt. Like, you know what I mean? So to give everybody like an example of Vincent, because this is literally what's going on right now. So he took me to his lab. So he's getting a doctorate in some kind of biology, like the DNA structure biology or something like that.
I know he went to school out in Salt Lake because he could start his doctorate in biology, but then could pick his focus later on. Yeah.
So Vincent is the first person literally is working, like finishing working, where it's like if he is essentially the first person to prove that a method works, but Vincent has literally discovered a new way of like genetic coding. Like literally DNA, like fixing errors in people's like mutation in DNA. He's the first person to be able to use like this certain coding on like RNA to fix mutations, and nobody else has ever even thought to do this, and he's the first person to do it. Because that's Vincent. But then you're on the mountain and he goes, "Oh, Tommy, good news. More snow up here." And he said, "What?" And he goes, "Sorry, more or less snow." And I'm like, "What are you saying?" He's like, "Oh, there's less snow," I guess would be the best way to put that. And you're like, how can you figure out a new genetic coding technique, but you can't figure out how to say, "Oh, there's less snow up here"?
There was more or less snow back there. There was less snow back there. Even more less snow over here.
Exactly. And that's how he was like, I think that's what he was saying. Like, what?
I get what yeah.
Yeah, but that's not how you say
No,
that.
it's not.
That's not how you say that. But it's like such a classic Vincent thing. But yeah, dude, kind of getting into that, especially if you're anybody who shopped with us for a long time, just kind of talking about what Vincent's doing right now, is because he has shown this, because the way that like DNA mutation happens is like, so you got like ATGC is like your genetic like makeup. Like those are all the 4 components of DNA. And it's like you always have like an A across from a T, and you always have a G across from a C, right? Well, the problem that happens is like certain things, like you'll get an oxidated G. He's explaining this to me standing in his lab, like on a whiteboard, you know? And what'll happen is, instead of binding with a C like it's supposed to, it'll bind with an A. And the problem is like if it doesn't recognize and fix that, then whenever it replicates the wrong thing again. When it splits and creates a new strand of DNA, it's now, that bottom side of it is now coded with an A instead of a C. So your new strand of DNA, instead of having a G on top like it's supposed to, now has a T on top, because the A goes with a T, right? So the problem with that is like, when that happens exponentially over and over again, and your body isn't able to fix it, there's like 6,000 diseases that causes. Like those genetic mutations are like really bad, you know? But like, apparently the method that like typically happens is it typically has to like comb through your whole DNA, right? But, and I'm butchering this, but something, I don't know if he discovered this part of it or like a different like part to this part, but he was able to use like this different kind of like, it's like a strain of E. coli bind to like an RNA thing. But the thing is you can code into that RNA like an address for a package, like exactly where it needs to go to fix a thing, as opposed to like, here's a whole room, comb the whole room until you find an issue. It's like, nope, the issue's there, and send it directly there. And so then what happens is it cuts out. He was the first person to be able to prove that this method would cut out, because usually what happens is it cuts out the oxidative G. He is the first person to prove a method that cuts out the A, which is the real problem. And so he's kind of in the boat of like, you know, like this is just, and you know, Vincent, he's super humble and like talking about this stuff, but it's like essentially he's created a sandbox for what he says smarter people to work in. But it's like, you know, this is obviously would be the dream, but it's like this sandbox, if everything continues to work like it has been, has like legitimate like properties of curing things like one of the big ones was like, I think colon cancer was he was talking about, how it has like, you know, obviously we're yada-ing past like a huge massive thing that gets you from this step to that step.
Yeah, where Vincent's at right now.
But he's like, and I wouldn't even have the time, but he's like, but if I can prove and create a new sandbox that allows people who've been doing this for 20 years to now have money and access to this sandbox, he's like, well, now they can build much bigger castles than I would have ever been able to. And he's like, what those end up being will be the real cool thing. You know?
He's just creating the potential for it.
Right. He's just creating like, you know, essentially the tool that uses it. So, yeah. So pretty crazy though. But then again, like, but the dude can't spell receipt. So,
yeah, I mean, that just reminds me of like when he was around here and we were really diving into cold process, because that was obviously a big thing that we learned at supplement superstores when it refers to whey protein specifically. And we wanted to kind of, you know, dive into that ourselves and make sure that, you know, hey, if we're, you know, not just preaching cold processed in the store, but also making like going out of our way to make sure our protein's cold processed as well. As like, let's make sure that this is legitimate and that there's actual reasons that we should be doing this.
Right.
And we finally kind of got down this rabbit hole. It was very tough to find. There's really was no articles about it. It's a pretty niche thing. You talk about it to someone that's like a 10-year veteran in to working out and taking supplements, and a lot of times they won't even know what that is. Like they've never even heard of it before.
Probably by design.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, if you want to get down the conspiracy theorist hole.
I'll do it.
That's so we kind of got down, like we were like, you know, trying to find like articles and studies, and finally, like it took us a couple of days to even just like get on the right path of like finding the right stuff. And then finally we found these studies that were like not even super related to, like, it wasn't done from the position of someone that was like working out and taking whey protein. It was like, I think a lot of them were more based on like whey and milk and like testing dairy products and stuff like that, because a lot of it has to do with like pasteurization, the processing, and all that kinds of stuff. But it just reminds me, he ended up writing an entire article on it that we use for our employees today. And to essentially, they gave us the confidence that, hey, cold processing like does actually make a difference. We even went down this rabbit hole of like not just reaching out and working with our manufacturer, but like working with the supply, like the whey supplier, like the company that actually like processes the whey, and talking and getting in. Vincent got in contact with the guy that legitimately is like head of the department that pasteurizes and processes the whey protein. This
has us written all over it.
Down the rabbit hole. And it's funny, it's just like we really got to the point where we're like, okay, yes, we're confident that there is a difference, and that does genuinely, there is a major benefit to using cold processed protein over non. And he still hasn't like fully given that up. You can tell he's still like still wants to prove more, because he's developed, or like he called me, this was like a year or two ago, but he was talking to me about cold temperature processing on whey, and he wanted me to send him some samples of some cold process whey and some non-cold process whey because he had thought of a new way that he had learned based off of his classes that would like it showed differences in proteins, and he figured out a way or thought of a way that could potentially apply to whey protein and telling the difference. And it was like this gel, and how fast the protein moves off through the gel depends on like it gives will tell how much of like an electric charge that has. And he's like, if it's not cold processed, it'll move, very quickly. Or if it is, it'll move very slowly. I just have to get approval from my professor to be able to order the specific right. And I'm like, holy crap. Like Vincent, I was pretty satisfied with this, the research you did before.
But dude, Vincent in a sandbox of science though, is just like but that's it, dude. I think that's like such a cool part though, where it's like, I love talking to our current employees and stuff about people like Vincent and Chad too, but it's like, just talking about like, hey man, like, like when people, cause I think it's natural, like people, when they first kind of start with us kind of have natural questions of like, hey, how do we know that this is a thing? Right. And I think that's like an important question that like everybody kind of has to go through asking. Like, I don't blame people for being apprehensive. Like obviously customers are all the time about it. And it's like, we're just trying to, help and find, because it's not any more expensive really from a consumer standpoint to get something low temp. But it's like, it's cool now because now we've literally got a man on the inside of a lab who like has done enough now where like he probably can do pretty much whatever he wants now. You know what I mean? Like to be able to test that kind of stuff and just kind of to prove it more to us, like, and to everybody, like, hey, this is a huge deal.
No, I think that was a super important part too, is because we arrived to that question. I think we maybe always like had not doubts, but just like curiosities of like what
being good scientists, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like we don't want to just preach something just because that's what we're told, and there's benefits to it, and we want to legitimately know if what we're doing is the right thing. Yeah, and we kind of arrived at that. And it's like, all right, like, well, let's take a look. Let's dive into it. And that's what we did. And we came to the conclusion that we did. And Vincent is continuing to prove that.
Yeah.
Or to continue to not just prove it, but put it to the test. That is Vincent in a nutshell, right?
Yeah.
I think so.
Well, it's super funny too, because, and I don't know if you've ever had this. I've only had it a handful of times, but it's like, you start talking about protein processing and you happen to come across somebody who's like, doing things similar to Vincent. I had a lady down in Norman one time. This is the story I'm reminding myself or remembering right now is we were just going through protein processing and like talking about it. And she's like, oh, this is so cool. Like I actually like run a lab at OU and like, oh, that's super cool. And we started talking about it. And I was like, yeah, the three like main processing, we're talking like low temperature process, what would be considered, it doesn't, I guess, have a name, but we call it high temperature processing. And then ion exchange. And she was like, there's protein that uses ion exchange. And I'm like, yeah, there is. I'll be honest, I don't recommend it. And she's like, and you shouldn't. What? And she's like, we use ion exchange in the lab all the time. And ain't no way I'm putting whatever we just did that to into my body afterwards. She's like, is that still even considered protein on the other end? And I'm like, technically. And she's like, oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she's like, okay, well, yeah, that's not great. And she's like, it would be safe. She's just like, you're not going to get anything out of it. And I'm like, thank you. Like,
someone that has no idea, like is like a totally coming from an unbiased opinion, just knows about ion exchange.
Right.
And knows like anything, like just anything that has been subjected to this, you probably shouldn't take.
Right. Well, anybody who's not familiar with it, just to even break down ion exchange for a second, it's a super unpopular, like it's not nearly used as much as it used to be, but for a while it was, because it was always considered like the highest level of filtering, which is not incorrect. It is the highest filtered protein, but at what cost, right? And so the thing that happens is they essentially use, I don't remember what kind, so I won't even try, but it is an acid that they use to change the charge of the protein compared to the other things that are within it. And then they shoot it down a tube, and I forget which way it goes. What is like, the tube is either like opposite charge to the protein or opposite charge to everything. I think it's everything else. So it's like when you shoot all of the stuff through, everything that doesn't match the same charge as the tube, like all the crap that you don't want in your protein, sticks to the sides of the tube, and then just protein is able to go through, right? And so like you're shooting all this stuff through, and the only thing that can come through the other side is protein. So it is 100% protein. But the way that you change that charge is through acid,
right?
Which like denatures and ruins the protein as being like a consumable. Like it's not going to make you sick or anything, but it's like as a consumable nutrient.
Yeah, an acid subjected protein.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because I've used that like as an analogy sometimes, where it's like, well, just talking about protein processing with people, it's like, well, you know, like if I'm cooking a steak, like, you want it on the grill or you want it in a bath of acid? And they're like, ha, ha, ha. And I'm like, no, seriously.
Yeah.
Those are your options.
Luckily, yeah, you're right. There's not a whole lot of ion exchange anymore. There used to be a lot more, but we're lucky we don't have to talk people out of ion exchange anymore.
No,
but,
it's really not as popular as it used to be.
It is funny though, but yeah, in the store, you really have to have like, we always aim to have as good of an understanding as we can. And it's, you know, not just, surface level. And I think that's, you know, that comes with time. With the more you're at the store, is, you know, when you first get there and you take your tests, like you get like enough of an understanding to have, you know, at least what to be able to tell customers. And then maybe one step beyond that of, okay, I should be getting a cold processed protein. Yes, I learned that. Well, why should I be doing that? Well, you know, just like food, you want to make sure when you cook it, you don't burn it.
Right.
It's like, okay, that's, you know, your next step. And then you kind of like start diving down this rabbit hole. And obviously it is a never ending rabbit hole. Like you could go down forever. But I think that's been one really cool part. One really big part to our success is we try and get as far as we can down that rabbit hole. And we're like cold processing. We had a customer, in most customers are satisfied with like, you go, you know, maybe surface level, explain, hey, this is important, you know. 10% of customers are like, well, why? Maybe more than that, maybe like 30%. And then you have, you know, 2% of customers that are like, I need 2 steps beyond, like, well, why is it important? And it's like, okay, well, now I can explain, you know, protein has to be pasteurized, cooked, processed. It burns at this temperature, you know, make sure you don't do that. Every once in a while, you get a customer that is just like that lady that was familiar with ion exchange, that just fully understands everything. Yeah. I had a lady, this was real early on, and it was right around the time that we were doing all that research on cold temperature processing. And we had this lady come in. It was her and her husband that came in, and they were asking for recommendations. We were kind of going over protein, and I, you know, started talking about cold temperature processing, and was maybe a little overzealous because we had, you know, just done quite a bit. And it turns out, I didn't know this at the time, but it turns out she was some kind of electrical, I don't know. Yeah. But yeah.
Nerd. Just kidding.
But I started talking about cold temperature processing. And the quality of the protein, that like the structure actually changes. And she's like, oh, right, because it actually would be denatured. And I was like, oh, like really close. Actually, it's actually through it becomes denatured. It's actually in the aggregation process that it forms covalent bonds. And and she was like, oh, and kind of didn't say a whole lot the rest of the time. Yeah. And it like
still fine interaction, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Checked them out. Great interaction, especially with the husband the rest of the time. They leave, they come back a couple of weeks later, and she says, I have a confession. She says, I am yada, yada. I've got this degree, this master's, like all this kind, all this schooling, and I'm familiar with all of that. And she's like, I wasn't really prepared for you to correct me when I talked about denaturation. And I was like, I'm so sorry. She's like, but I looked it up. And you're right. Yeah. I was like, I really didn't mean it that way. Like, I'm sorry. We just did a lot of research on this, and I'm probably
score one for the home team. Right? Though.
Yeah, we got it was really funny to kind of go from the period of time in the few months that we were opening TRIAD and developing a lot of the initial defined nutrition products, and just spending time and putting like research into things like cold processing and we were just the 3 of us all talking about supplements. and
super nerding out on it.
Oh yeah. And then we finally subject ourselves, like actually open the doors and let customers in. And they're like, which protein should I get? Well, we're going to make sure we look for one without covalent bonds in it. Wait a second. Scale it back. It back. And I went through this, and I remember talking to Chad and Vincent. I'm like, are you guys accidentally like over explaining everything? Like, yes.
Dude, it's so funny. But it is like, and this is something that we've said many times, but it is kind of like the tax we pay when it comes to especially our training. Because especially once you're in like a couple years in, you're no longer like our staff is super smart, but it's like that 2-year mark where you just grasp all the concepts as opposed to just like regurgitating things that you know them to be true, but it's like there's a lot that goes in there. But it's crazy when you start to think, and it's something that I know we're all super proud of, but it's like, it's so cool that we can have an employee at a supplement store like impress somebody who's like, a legitimate scientist. And It's like, but the tax that comes along with that is exactly what you're saying, because every employee we have goes through this, and it's so funny. It's my least and my most favorite time of new employees is the drastically over explaining everything to every customer that comes in, because they've just had to cram for like the most intense final that they've ever had to take in their life. And they've like crammed all this information. And then now it's just like busting at the seams, and it like wants to come out every chance that you have an opportunity to. And we'll just jump into my make fun of Will moment now.
I thought this was where it was leading.
Oh, as soon as you started talking about it, I was like, this is my moment. So this is Will a while ago. This is Will working in Norman. So this was a long time ago. But I love Will to death, right? He knows that. Well, he probably knows that. But
hopefully.
Yeah. But this, like, it's one of my favorites. And I think I maybe even told the story on here before, but like this lady comes in probably in her 70s, maybe on the 80s side of things. And she comes in and she's like, she's looking for something, and I think her like son or grandson or somebody had like recommended to her that she takes amino acids like after her workout, I think. And so this lady comes in, and Will takes her, and she's like, I think I need BCCAAs, like she's not super familiar with it. And he's like, oh yeah, are you taking those for their anti-catabolic properties?
No.
And she was like,
my grandson told me.
She was like, BCCAAs? And he's like, yeah, when are you taking them? My grandson told me to take them after my workout. Well, I think you'd want a more complete amino acid profile at that point, because like while the BCAAs are going to have their anti-catabolic properties, we want to get into a full anabolic state to really improve recovery. So I'm actually going to recommend isolated protein right over here. She was like, BCCAAs? And I'm like, and you're just like, all right. And I remember the lady left, and Will was like, how'd I do? And I was like, well, like everybody goes through this. Yeah. So like, that's why it's easy to laugh about, because everybody goes through this. But I was like, William, you just said to that like 70-plus-year-old lady, anti-catabolic properties. He was like, oh, that's probably too much, wasn't it? Probably a little bit, but like nothing he said was wrong.
Yeah, no, that's the balance though, is being able to have the knowledge to be able to explain to the scientist that's 1 out of every 1,000 people that come in, and impress them and be able to hold a full conversation, because those are a lot of times the opinion leaders. Maybe they're not the ones working in the lab, but they're the coaches in the area that have this extremely in-depth knowledge on what they're doing, and they are leading a lot of the opinions in the area. And if we can talk to them and impress them with how much we know and how much we understand, that's awesome. That's a huge piece to the puzzle.
Right.
But 99 out of 100 people, we're going to have to explain it like everything's a foreign language.
Right. Exactly. This is day one. Supplements 101.
Right.
Right.
It is a tough skill to learn to kind of go back and forth with. And you usually figure it out within your first year to really kind of gauge someone's understanding and to kind of go from there. So,
right. Well, and you start working and figuring out like your analogies to explain some more like difficult concepts that are important for people. You know what I mean? And it's like, like when I always talk about low temperature processing versus like high temperature processing, it's like, well, you know, like how hot do you want your chicken to be? Like, oh, like 165 degrees, right? Would you want to eat that chicken if it was 265 degrees? Like, not really. Like, well, neither would I.
Yeah.
And those are kind of, you know what I mean? It's just like simple stuff like that where it's like, oh, like that makes sense. I wouldn't want that, right? Same thing happens with your protein powder. Like,
yeah.
But those are the funniest times though, because like they're usually harmless, you know. But it's like it is such a funny thing because everybody goes through that phase. Every single person, every person we ever hire forever will go through that phase of just like the drastic over explaining.
I've had to go through it multiple times.
Yeah, right.
I'd say. I mean, I'm like obviously in the beginning, working at supplement superstores. When we opened the store and had several months where we weren't working in the store. And even a little bit now is today I was explaining someone asked me the difference between the qualities of the creatine monohydrates, and I started explaining 80 mesh and 200 mesh, and he was like, wasn't fully grasping
creatine monohydrate, please.
And I was like,
I don't need mesh.
And I had like kind of already made recommendations. I was like, okay, so monohydrates typically are go-to recommendation. Most proven, typically least most cost effective, and like to be honest, man, the first one was usually the go-to. He's like, well, is there a difference in quality in all these other monohydrates? I'm like, that's a great question. I probably
I'm glad you asked.
I probably shouldn't have answered all that. Because I think I was like explaining 80 mesh and 200 mesh. He's like, all right, but like the quality, is there a difference? I'm like,
which one's cleaner?
I did a terrible job. But because I'm not taking his customers as much as possible. I just got done having a conversation with Preston about creatine and the cost and like the cost fluctuations that we were seeing. And he was asking about cost differences, and I started explaining like, well, where we saw a big spike in price of creatine, we're starting to see that kind of trickle back down. And
thank
First
goodness,
Form,
by the way.
Thank goodness. First Form being a bigger company than Accent Sledge will probably be able to run through their inventory. They rotate through their inventory a little more quickly. So we'll see that price come down a little quicker. It's like, so out of these two, which one is? Fuck, I'm sorry. Man. I'm not qualified for this job. I'm sorry.
Well, it is funny because like there's so many aspects of the store that comes up to like, and this is probably the one that gets over-explained the most, but just because the question gets asked the most often is, so the stores, what we do within the store is we work off of what's called MAP pricing or minimum advertised pricing. So it's essentially like whenever you get like a cost breakdown of a product, creatine monohydrate, right? It is, here is your cost to buy it. Here is the MAP pricing or minimum advertised pricing, and here is MSRP or the recommended price for it, right? So like, let's say, and we're going to totally make up numbers here. So like, let's say you buy something for $20, the MAP pricing is $30 and the MSRP is $40, right? That's like that wouldn't be crazy to see, right? And so the thing that comes up a lot is we just sell everything at MAP. Like it is the lowest you're allowed to sell it and still carry that product. So they set your minimum price so that you aren't like drastically undercutting, whatever online.
If a brand doesn't have MAP pricing, then it's just a race to the bottom. Because like most, especially if a brand has no exclusivity anywhere, anybody can pick it up and sell it. It becomes a very quick race to the bottom of who can have it the cheapest. If you have any popularity to it, we're going to try and sell it cheaper than everybody else so people come here. Right. I don't care if I make no money on it at all.
Right, so. Exactly. And that becomes a problem when you have every product in the store.
Right,
do that,
for obvious reasons. Yeah.
It's like, well, if we make 12 cents on everything we sell, well, we don't get to be around.
Right.
So we just mark everything to that MAP price. That's like a pretty traditional like go-to thing. one of the things that kind of happens and why this comes up a lot is people ask like, you know, do we do any deals? Do we do any sales? Do we do any of like, you know, you guys got any discounts on anything, right? And it's like, well, you have to explain to people like, well, unfortunately, no, because like we can't. We like actually cannot on most of these items. Like there is a minimum advertised price that's like not negotiated, but accepted whenever you pick up the product. You are agreeing that this is the lowest price that you can sell it at. And so like, I can't necessarily, you know, if the map pricing's $30, like we can't have it on the shelf for 20. Like you don't get to carry the product then. So if you're breaking map, like you will lose the opportunity to sell that product. Like that company can get.
I can sell it to you at a discount, but I won't be able to reorder it.
Right, exactly. And so people ask that question all the time. And the thing you don't want to do is do everything I just did to explain all of those things, right? Because you lose somebody pretty quick in that, like, oh, do you guys have any deals? Because that's not an uncommon thing, especially for supplement stores or just like retail locations in general, is, you know, they'll do some kind of sale on something or like, but, you know, and this doesn't apply to everybody, but the dirty secret to most of that is like, they're just selling everything above map. And then they can mark it down for you. So that's like the whole reason why we do that is like, we don't want to do that. We don't want to mark something up 10% so that I can give you 10% off. I don't want to mark it up 20% to give you 20% off with a TRIAD membership card or whatever.
Right. We don't want you to sign up or have to come in on a certain day or buy a certain amount. Or
there's nothing worse, and I know we all agree on this. There's nothing worse than buying something I don't want to get a price on something I do want. Like, oh, but if you get this, then you can get this for this price. And you're just like, dude, can I just buy this at a good price every day?
Right.
And it's like, and that's always been our like go-to design.
Especially when you're working with nutrition, something that needs to be taken regularly. It shouldn't be. You shouldn't be. I mean, I guess some people do, but like when I buy my groceries, like especially if I'm dieting, I'm not buying, you know, the best deal. I'm not buying crackers over chicken because crackers are they've got a BOGO sale. Like I'm buying chicken because I need chicken.
Right. Exactly though. Right. Like I'm not, you know, you want to like maintain quality on like certain things that you're getting. But yeah, so people come in and will like ask if we do those, and it's an innocent question, but yeah, it's like finding that like, you know, and this totally happens to this day all the time because it is a hard thing to find like a quick explanation for. But it's just like, man, pretty much my go-to anymore is just like, man, unfortunately, we do sell everything at the lowest we're allowed to sell it. Like there's, you know, like literally negotiated with the companies that is the cheapest you can find this.
Right.
And so people are like, oh, okay. And so my typical go-to, if somebody's kind of like, you know, is to like pull up the price of that product online because it's almost always quite a bit more expensive than what we're carrying it for. It's like, see, man, like because we do this, I can sell this to you every day for $23, but online it's $30 every day of the week. And so it's like, no, I can't. You already have a discount, if that makes sense.
Dude, I think that is something that is that took a long time for that to really have a true benefit to it because it still is marketing to be cheaper or at least as cheap, if not cheaper than anywhere online or anywhere else, anywhere. Right. But if that's just what it is and you're not running like a special sale or deal, or we're not there just temporarily, you can't really market that a whole lot. It's not really eye catching. Sure, we could put some ads up there, but like that's not going to grab a whole lot of attention. It is very much a reputation based strategy, and that one took 2 to 3 years to really take effect. Right. Yeah.
Well, and you have to really buy into it because the problem that happens, and everybody, you know, subconsciously, I feel like knows this. If you buy something on sale, you wait to buy it on sale again. Like you get into this like, oh, well, when is that going to go on sale? When is it going to be this price? When is it going to be that price? And it's like, so we do sales, like we do our 1 year, like once a year, like discount day. And that is, you know, like just filtering through products that weren't overly popular in the store or whatever, you know, is kind of going on with that.
And it's typically products that aren't going to be back on the shelf.
Right. Exactly. And so it's a win-win for everybody. It allows us to recoup a lot of the cost, which means that we can reorder new items. Plus you guys get a discount, but it just kind of works. But it's like, you can't do it, you know, all the time. And even with that, you know, like we've had customers that were the only time they'd ever come to visit us before was the discount day. And they bought a product for $15 and now it's $30 on the shelf and they were not happy about it. And you're like, okay, like, you know, like, I understand. And, I'm sorry. But it just goes to show what happens. We barely do it. And it's, 1 in a million that somebody's ever been disgruntled about it.
Right.
But it's like, but imagine if we were doing sales all the time.
Right.
Like then it's like, oh, well, last time I bought this, it was 23 and now it's 30. Why is that? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, you start having to play that game too of like, well, gosh, like, are people ever going to, you start being a race to your bottom on yourself because it's like, are people even going to buy this now because we had it at this price and now it's at this price? And it's like,
if we had a disgruntled customer because we run one sale a year, then imagine if that's like your go-to is running sales.
Right. Like I can't imagine the headache that comes along with that.
Dude, I mean, you get all like you start to attract more of a customer base that's constantly asking for the sales. Like it's the same type of person that's like mad that you're not running sales and then or like mad that you don't ever run sales and then mad that they did come in when you ran a sale but aren't running a sale now. It's like it's either the same all the time or it's not the same all the time and you're mad either way.
Right. Like what?
It wouldn't be a sale if I ran it all the time. So.
Right. Well, and dude, and then you get to that phase where it's like people are like, oh, you guys have a sale next week? All right, well, cool. I'll be back next week.
Yeah.
And you're just like, let's just like, can we just forget all of that and just like, hey, it's the best price we can sell it to you every day of the week. You don't have to come in on a special day. You don't have to buy anything you don't want. Come in anytime you want, any day of the week, unless map pricing changes on this will be the price that you get.
Right.
And the thing that I think is super cool, because where I think where the temptation lies, but I think that I'm always proud of us because I think this is a super cool thing, is like when a price goes up in map, obviously we have to increase the price. But when price goes down in map, we decrease the price.
Right.
It just happened with first form creatine, where it was like we were selling first form creatine at, whatever price it was. And then it's like the temptation of a business would be, well, like people have been buying it for this price the whole time. And I love that we have always stuck to the guns of like, nope, map pricing went down. Like when it goes up, we change it. When it goes down, we change it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's like, cool, it went down. Guess what, guys? Like refresh the POS systems. Like creatine $7 cheaper. And we're like, heck yeah, that's awesome. You know what I mean? Like that's great for everybody.
Right. Exactly. Man, I think I hope I don't get anybody's hopes up. So don't hold me to what I say right now. Take it with a grain of salt.
Won't be recorded, so
yeah, that's the good news. I think we're starting to notice some small trends and stuff, kind of starting to bump in price. Like the prices of things are starting to bump. That creatine, obviously, first form is the creatine we typically sell. It was the cheapest to begin with. It's now even cheaper.
Yeah, now it crushes everybody else.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody will probably catch up, but
for right now, it crushes everybody else cost wise.
Right. We think citrulline maybe took a little jump down.
Nice.
We noticed some protein. Prices of protein seem like they've gone down a little bit. Starting to notice some trends in more than one area. So I think through the rest of the year, we're going to be able to bump some prices down on other items in the store. We should be able to bump some prices down on defined nutrition products as well. So
that's awesome.
Man, we really appreciate everybody that stuck with us when we did have to raise prices because if what we're paying for it doubles, like unfortunately we just can't sell it for the price we used to.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to be ordering tens of thousands of dollars worth of products if you make no profit on it at all.
Right.
So we appreciate everybody that stuck around with us as we had to raise prices. So the reward there is obviously we get to bring them back down if the prices come down.
Right.
So, I've heard a lot of people say that, when prices bump up, they typically don't come back down. And I think that's probably true in some instances, but I was skeptical of people saying that to begin with.
Well, I'm glad that it's happening because that's just sticking with creatine. Like, would people be like, I used to buy this creatine for $18, and I was like, yeah, I know we don't get it for $18 anymore though. So like,
right,
you know what I mean? Like what
right.
But yeah, it's good to see that trend coming down. And even during those times, like I know there was plenty of conversations and things that happened where like we started to get creative with it because as price of things were going up, especially with the protein increase in prices, that was a really tough one because we were seeing 5 pounders of protein that we used to be able to sell for $60, $65 going to $80, $85. And that's tough. You know what I mean? And so I know one of the things that like we had implemented like when we could was bringing in some other like low cost options in other products. So it was like, hey, you know, you're used to buying a $60 protein and a $40 pre-workout. Well, cool. Unfortunately, your protein's now $80, but we also just brought in a couple of $20 options when it came to pre-workout. You know what I mean? Like, let me at least get you out of here for the same price if I can, where it's like, if there's something though that like you're going to take a decrease in quality, it's definitely going to be your pre-workout over your protein. You'd never want to drop your quality when it comes to protein. It's not a good idea. And so it's like, that was something that I thought was cool that we at least implemented to some extent of like, let's at least get some options to like, you know, if like we understand, like it's tough if you're used to coming in and spending $100 and now like you're being expected to spend $120. It's like, well, crap. You know what I mean? Like, well, let's at least have some options to make this work for people still.
Man, it's funny. I feel like we're starting to see a polarization of pre-workouts where we've noticed, I think over the last 5-10 years, we've noticed pre-workouts get increasingly better quality with not just stimulants, but good performance ingredients, good pump ingredients, and start to become bigger and bigger scoops because, you know, those things take up a little more space. And now it's kind of starting to become a little bit of a race to who can create the most stacked formula of a pre-workout. And they're super, super cool formulas. We just released one of our own Pre-Plus, super popular so far. Yeah, but we're noticing kind of another like a divide almost on the other end of the spectrum. These ultra basic pre-workouts come out where it's like, hey, it's enough of everything. It kind of hits a few categories. Yeah. It'll, you know, you will definitely feel better for your workout. And it's not super expensive.
Yeah. Doesn't have all the razzle dazzle to it, but it's like, it's going to get the job done and it'll do it pretty good.
For sure. I think we'll probably start to see more of that polarization.
Which is good though, right? Like,
I agree.
The thing that ends up happening, you know, at sometimes when it comes to pre-workout, and it's gotten better with things like this, but there was who was going to be the guy or who's going to be the company, I should say, that made the like, I don't know the right word to say here, but the like someone's first pre-workout. And that was becoming a struggle where it was like, there wasn't a boatload of options when it came to everybody was making like, okay, cool. How do we make this the most intense, crazy 30-gram scoop, like pre-workout that we can't, if not more than that for 2 scoop options, you know, like 40 grams worth of powder. Yeah. Right. And it's like,
taking more pre-workout than protein volume.
For real though.
Or not volume, but weight.
I know what you mean. But yeah, it's probably close though.
Yeah.
But it's like, then people would come in and be like, I've never really taken pre-workout, you know? And I'd be like, okay, well, like you can take a half a scoop of this, or you could take like a half a serving of this, or it's like, or there's this that's kind of a pre-workout, but not overly a pre-workout, but it can work for you. And then it was like, there was always things like Megawatt and ABCD and stuff like that worked, but it was like finding something, you know, gone were the days of like, or there wasn't a lot of options in that like 150 to 200 milligrams of caffeine, a half to full dose of beta alanine, maybe some pump stuff. You know, the products you're talking about now that we're starting to see the polarization have kind of come back. Yeah, were like cheaper options. Where it's like somebody come in and you kind of had to makeshift them like they're kind of lower end pre-workout sometimes.
I am glad that the race to the top for pre-workouts has seemed like it's shifted from being the highest stim or the craziest grouping of stimulants to being the most stacked formula with like the best pump ingredients. It's like, take as much citrulline and glycerol as you want. Like you'll be fine. You're going to get a sick pump. Don't take as much caffeine and other dopamine precursors that you want. Right. That could be a problem.
Well, dude, and like you like there's like a legitimate thing where like I have a conversation, like not regularly, but I have a conversation every once in a while where like you almost have somebody who's like, what's the right way to put this? Like they're talking to you about how much caffeine they take, like it's cool. And you have to be like, hey man, that's not cool. Like, you know, this actually like not a good deal. Like, like if you are, you know, they'll be like, oh yeah, like I use woke, and I'm like, oh nice, and I'm like, nice. How do you like the woke? Well, I'm taking like 2 to 3 scoops of it. I'm like, jeez, dude, like that's not good at all. And then they're like, well, and then, like the nice thing is, at least with those people, is like you just educate them on like how too many stimulants will kill their pump, and they're like, bro, what?
Yeah,
and they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, dude, like caffeine vasoconstrictor, pumps up vasodilator.
There's a perfect explanation or like perfect reason to give them to not take as much.
And they're like, well, dude, I'm chasing that nasty pump. And I'm like, well, you got to drop your stim then. Like, all right, cool. I'll try something else. I'm like, thank goodness, dude. Like, or just take a break for a while.
Was it, I think it was maybe David Goggins. I think I heard it from JP, or maybe even you through JP. I can't remember, but I think it initially came from David Goggins about how it was like it's not cool to take a lot of caffeine. He's like, if you can't find motivation or like discipline to do it yourself, you need a little crutch like caffeine to get you there. You're being a baby about it.
Yeah, right.
Like, dang,
right.
You just made caffeine uncool.
Yeah, right. But dude, there was like a phase where like that, and I'm happy to see the shift, but there was a phase where that was like becoming more and more a thing, where it was like, oh yeah, but I want I want the strongest pre-workout you have. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, well, the one with the most stimulants. Like, okay. And then I always like, well, these right here and to the right all make me sick when I take them. And they're like, oh,
dude. Maybe not the height of it, but definitely when high stim was like what everybody was shooting for, or like that was the top of the list. Like everybody was trying to fight to the top. There was with. When it was more stimulant based, I had 2 separate people in the store tell me almost the exact same thing, that, oh yeah, I took this pre-workout, super strong, felt like crazy when I first started working out, didn't even get through my first movement, threw up, came back, felt great. I loved it. I'm getting more. Like, you threw up and you're getting more. Usually that's when people try and return products.
Right. Well, sometimes it sounds like you threw up about half of it. So maybe take half a serving.
Yeah, exactly.
You probably feel great. You could just have that great feeling without the barfing.
Right. Yeah.
That'd be cool, right?
Threw up. I loved it.
Yeah.
You loved the throwing up, or?
Yeah. Yeah, it tasted like pink lemonade.
Oh, gosh.
Lit. So it is good to see. I think it's just cool in general, because I think, and this is something that I feel like we've kind of always taken the approach on, but I'm happy to see more and more companies do the same thing, because you used to see a lot of brands be very focused towards one demographic, right? Like their demographic was like, I want, let's use First Form, like, or Core as an example. I think both of those are really solid examples, where it was like, the old school that aren't like First Form and Core were like very specific to a demographic. They're like, I want to make the highest stim, I want to make this, I want to make that, and then like forget everything else. Like we make protein and we make 500 milligram caffeine per scoop pre-workout.
Right.
And we make amino acids and that's it.
Right.
Right. And you're like, okay. But it's cool to see the brands that can be popular across communities, right? The brands that are popular in CrossFit are also popular in bodybuilding, are also popular in powerlifting, are also popular in longevity, are also popular in just like fit camps, like whatever, and I think First Form and Core are great examples of that, because it's like you can walk in and just under the umbrella of Core or First Form buy decently high stimulate, like a pretty solid, like too intense pre-workout if you want it, a hair, skin, and nails, a prostate product, a liver product, you know what I'm saying? Like
post-workout,
like
hydration,
like anything that would make sense for you if you're if you're my grandma, or if you're an endurance athlete, or if you're a power lifter, like this company can actually, take care of pretty much all of your needs across the things that they make. Yeah. Where it's like, you're seeing these companies, like, it seemed like for a while, some of the supplement companies, and maybe this isn't the right way to put it, but I think you understand what I'm saying, where it was like they weren't super interested in increasing how long you were living.
That's right.
Right? That was not something they were factoring in.
Yeah.
Like, oh, is this good long term?
Right.
And now you're seeing companies like really take that approach of things where it's like they across the board. Like I take tons because like a lot of my focus has turned into longevity, and it's like, I've been as big as I want to be. I've been as strong as I want to be. Like I just want to kind of be here for a while now. And so it's like, that hasn't necessarily changed a lot of my product selection.
Mm-hmm. It's I think that could be a more difficult thing than it sounds to be able to span across different demographics that way too, that it's not creating one thing that fits all or one brand that fits all. It's not doing one thing. It is doing each of those things individually. Mm-hmm. It is creating products that are the best in each category, products that fit each demographic better than other products that only are in that demographic. Right. It's like, you're not just, First Form doesn't just compete with, core in the CrossFit space. They're competing against all the brands that are only in the CrossFit space, and they are doing their best they can to be the best in that demographic, which can be a difficult thing. And they're doing that in multiple categories. It's almost like multiple businesses. Right.
For sure. Well, and back to what I was like, what my point was, is it's cool because I feel like that has been our strategy with, not just Define, but with Triad.
100%.
We have people who are still to this day that were like, they come into Triad for the first time and they're like, oh, I was just expecting like, protein and like pre-workout. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, no, like here's our women's health section. Like here's like hormone balancing stuff, and like here's hydration, and here's 30 vegan options when it comes to protein, and here's vegan bars, and here's like, these like a little bit of everything, some food products. Like you can come and grab like rice and grinds and like all sorts of different flavored like peanut butters and stuff. And it's like, they were like, oh, I was just expecting to come in and this be like, I've had people like, do you guys have like just like vitamins and collagen? And I'm like, yeah, tons of it. Like, yeah. And they're like, oh, okay. And I was like, we try to make a store where, again, my grandma, a bodybuilder, a power lifter, and a fit camp person can, and a CrossFitter can all come in and enjoy the store equally. Right.
And that's, and it, for us, that's taken effort in each category is setting up things in the first place to be able to just have the potential, the opportunity to work with each demographic. And that starts with having a clean store, simple. Yep. We don't put up bodybuilding posters. We don't have, logos and
big brand stickers in the windows.
Yeah, big brands, which is common in the supplement industry. Yeah. But very clean, very simple. Attire for the employees. That's polo, khaki, or jeans.
Take it very serious.
Take it very seriously. Yeah, we don't. You're not allowed to wear a tank top to your shift. That's for sure.
No wife beaters and sweatpants.
Yeah, exactly. So we're trying to create a very professional environment. So when someone walks in, they're very comfortable, because it is I think we forget sometimes how intimidating it can be for some people to walk in the store. And it's like, you forget, because like we're spending every single day trying to be as nice as possible to every single person that comes in. It's like, why would, like, I just can't imagine someone being intimidated. But I had someone this weekend that said, I need to come see you guys. My trainer tells me all the time, you guys are just so intimidating. And it was like, man, I forget that. So I spent the time like trying to like joke around with her a little bit and kind of like and show like, hey, like I promise, like we're nice, like but like that is I think it probably a more common thing than we realize for a lot of people. So
we'll think about most of the experiences that they've probably had in similar places.
Exactly. It's the industry is generally in a very different, like is catering to a very different demographic. So but for us, it starts obviously with having a clean store, professional employees, and then from there it's having the product selection that fits everybody. But not just that is still surface level, in my opinion, is getting out and working with each of those demographics, sampling at different types of gyms, not just going to the common bodybuilder gym, but going to the Orange Theories, the boot camps, and working with jujitsu studios, and just and actually working with them to like show them, hey, we do cater to you guys as well, actually better than anybody else, because like you can't just like I think that's underestimated too, is you can't just like do some things that make sense for CrossFitters. You have to be the best in the CrossFit space. Then you have to be better than everybody else to make them want to shop with you. Because why, if you have a store that is only for CrossFitters, they're probably going to be pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And you have us that's trying to do it for everybody. We got to be better than them, because otherwise CrossFitters are going to go to the store that is.
Why would they not?
Exactly. That is best for them.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. Like I don't do jujitsu at a dance studio.
That also does jujitsu on the side.
Right. Like,
Right.
you know, and I don't know if there's any places like that, but you know what I mean? It's like,
No, it makes sense.
there's a focus and I go for the focus, you know?
Right.
That is a difficult thing. And I think that is what makes it so difficult, right?
Yeah.
Because on top of that too, and I think this goes hand in hand with what you're saying, you also then have to organically become integrated in the community. Like you want to be able to, you know, like it shouldn't matter what you do, right? Like I think you could take any employee that we have and drop them into any one of those demographics and they would do well and also like probably know people.
Right.
And like people would probably know them. You know what I mean? Like I'm not much of like, I don't personally do like a lot of boot camps, and that's not any dog on them. They would kick my butt because they're intense, but
You're just not good enough for them.
for real though, honestly, like they would kill me. I probably should have before trying to climb this mountain. Probably would have been a little better. But like I can still go into any boot camp style place in, you know, most of the Oklahoma City metro, and like, you know, I have done the time to like know and integrate myself into that community as well.
Right. Right.
Like get to know who those people are, what they like, you know, that's a huge part, inorganically, like not forced. Like I'm doing it. And that's my favorite part of the job. So it's easy for me because like that's my favorite thing to go and do, is to integrate myself into these communities and make friends with everybody, because I just like making friends.
Right.
But that's a huge part of it too, is it's like, now you have to be like, cause that's almost the first step to like even getting to the point where you can prove it to them that you are better than what they've been used to, or what they're expecting.
Right. Right. And I mean, that's why we don't ever require this, but we celebrate when people are able to jump in and get a workout when they are sampling. Like that's one of the most beneficial things you can do. And, I never personally did it a lot. I have specific training that I do personally really like to follow. And it's a big part of why I enjoy the fitness community. Right. I'll jump in and catch workouts from time to time, but it's fairly sparingly for me. So I understand if someone doesn't want to, and that's why we don't force them. But if you can, it's why we celebrate. It's such a big thing with Will jumping in and doing a Fit Camp 180 workout, with Christian jumping in and doing an Orange Theory workout. Kaylin, I think, always gets a workout wherever she is sampling at a CrossFit gym.
Across the board, everybody.
Right. But that goes such a long way. If you're not just the person standing at the table talking about supplements, you kind of separate. You're not quite in the same boat as everybody else. So if you jump in and catch a workout, people start to feel like you're just one of them. That's
for sure.
Huge.
Definitely. Definitely. It makes a massive difference.
Right.
Yeah. But, and I think that's, easier said than done, to kind of get to the point that we're at. And that's what's so cool about it though, right? Is that we have all of these people who genuinely want to do that. They're not just doing it because they know the benefit of it. And they're not just doing it because, X, Y, and Z. They're doing it because they want to. They personally want to get integrated into those communities as well.
Right.
And like get to know the people better. And,
if you look at our history, we didn't require so we work with a number of demographics now, and I think pretty well. We work with bodybuilding is always a big one, in supplements. We work with obviously a lot of boot camps. We work a lot with CrossFit. We work with the general population, general gym goers.
Yes, like lifestyle.
Yeah, more lifestyle, that's for sure. Jiu-jitsu is a newer one, but you look at all these and we grew in each community at different times, where when we first started, the one that we seemed to have the most luck with was CrossFit. Yeah. And a big part of that was Vincent going out and sampling at these CrossFit gyms and catching workouts with them and being immersed within the community. We started having tons of people that do CrossFit start to shop with us. Right. And shortly after that, we started working with Orange Theories. Once those kind of started to open up, we started working with the first one that opened up in Edmond, Oklahoma. and got to know the franchise owners before they even opened that one, actually.
Yeah.
And started working with all their locations as they grew like crazy in the area. And had a bunch of people shopping with us from Orange Theories, and started working with other boot camps from there. And bodybuilding was actually one that we didn't really start to work with until 2019. There were some opportunities in the market, and I was competing myself and got to actually, and that was kind of the tough one, is like, you're not competing in a bodybuilding show as often as you are in something like CrossFit. Like CrossFit, you're maybe doing a few a year. Bodybuilding, I'm doing one every 3 years. So it timed out well. I wanted to compete again, and kind of got to use it to our advantage and become immersed with the community. And it was one that I wanted to personally be immersed with it as well. So it all worked out really well. So it's funny that it is a ton of effort for just one community, for one demographic.
Dude, for real. And it's taken 8 years, you know what I mean? And it's like, luckily those relationships, we've been able to maintain and keep all of those relationships and kind of keep them going. But it's like, it is a culmination of 8 years of hard work into kind of doing those things. And it's something that we love, but yeah, it's not always easy. You know what I mean? Like you have to, especially when it comes to these communities or just these gyms, like you have to earn their trust naturally, right?
100%. Yeah.
Like whether you're working with somebody who runs a boot camp or somebody who is a bodybuilding coach, right? Like when they say TRIAD, go to TRIAD, they are putting their clients in our hands to treat them right. And it would be a poor reflection on them if we gave that person a bad, a bad time. Like if they came in and had a bad experience, is probably what I'm looking for. If they came in and had a bad experience, that could reflect poorly on the coach that sent them to us. Yeah. And so that's why, I think we always go out of our way to learn as much as we can about the coaches and what they like and what they recommend, so that I know when somebody comes into UConn and they're like, hey, Josh Dent sent me. I said, oh, great. And they go, can I take this? I go, yep, I've actually spoken to Josh Dent about that particular product and he's okay with it for what you're using it for. Or, it's somebody down in Norman and they're like, hey, Marcus sent me, I see that you guys have this fish oil, but he has this fish oil on here. Can I get the other one? And I say, absolutely not. Nope, you cannot. Because you will get in trouble.
But you are not allowed to tell him that I told you that was okay.
Yeah, please don't. Right?
I'm telling you that is not. You can do what you want. But I'm telling you, I would not recommend it.
Right. But that's the thing. It's like, or JT, where it's just like, I could still off the top of my head tell you the macros that JT wants for an isolate protein for his clients. But the thing is like, I am now being an extension of their job, like their career and what they're doing for these people. And if I fumble that or do something wrong or make the wrong recommendation or like decide what somebody should be doing better than what JT has decided they should be doing, well, like that's going to reflect potentially poorly on them to their client and obviously on us with that relationship. And so it's like, there's so much work that goes into it, but it's of the utmost importance to like always be understanding that. Or if it's a new community, or maybe even a new gym, it's just going and building their trust till they even say like, yes, I'm comfortable to recommend you guys. I've had a number of people come back after you've been here and tell me that they had a good experience and talk to me about it. Or, it's a whole new community, like the jiu-jitsu community, where it's like, I am just showing you the benefits of what supplementation could do for this community. Like on competition days or whatever, there's a ton of room for improvement on performance with X, Y, and Z. Like things as simple as like carbs and hydration. Like cool. On competition day, you can feel like $1 million.
Yeah. Dude, that's a good way of explaining it is you're an extension of that coach. So because you start recommending things that the coach changing what the coach recommended. It's an easy way to lose that trust. And sometimes a trust you gain really quickly and it gives you a false hope. Sometimes you got people that are like, man, I've heard about you, or give you a chance, or they're, a lot more open to hearing what you're all about and gain trust immediately. Man, other times people take 5 years. Sometimes people never even give you the chance, never give you the opportunity for you to gain their trust.
Right.
And that's just part of it, man. It's like, we're just constantly trying to build more trust with and build a relationship with the people in the community, man. And there's an endless amount of people in the fitness community in Oklahoma, and you're constantly trying to find new ones, but you're also chipping away at some that you've been chipping away at for 10 years.
Dude. But the cool thing is like, whenever those kind of situations, those kind of challenge ones kind of come to me, it's always like, all right, well, I'll still be here in 5 years and I'll still be trying.
Right. I will never stop trying.
I will never stop trying.
Yeah.
I will still be here. And like one day, you're going to like me.
The longer you take, the more satisfying it's going to be when you walk in the door and send a client.
Yeah, I'll be so stoked. But yeah. And the other thing too is understanding, and I get all the perspectives here. Right. But it doesn't make it easier for anybody, but anybody who's worked in the store has had somebody come in with a coach recommendation list of supplements and explain to you how they're also doing X, Y, and Z that they're not telling their coach, or that they're working with 2 coaches right now that are both trying to, and so it becomes understandably like, as a trainer, like one of the most underrated difficulties of being a trainer is people being dishonest with you on like what they're doing, what they're taking, if they're talking to somebody else or working with somebody else, or just their friend who competed one time in 1998 told them that they shouldn't be taking this and they should be taking that. And they're taking their advice. And it's like, okay. And then because ultimately, and the thing that is a bummer for the coaches or the trainers is like ultimately the fault typically falls to them.
Yeah.
Oh, they get fired because like what they were doing wasn't working.
That is crazy, man. Like this is going to be a super simplified example, but it'll show the frustration that like, cause I had a small taste of training and didn't help them a little bit with dieting, maybe like had people come by the store a little bit or gave general guidelines, but very little with that. But was training with people 1 to maybe 3 times a week, and they were maybe doing, their own training on the side. And we weren't doing a whole lot of tracking results because it was more of the clients I was working with were more like, let's just get in, get moving. I'm not, have specific goals or want to see specific results or this or that. It was like, I know I'm making a difference if I'm just getting in here and doing something. Right. But, you never really know what people are doing outside of when they're around you. It's, you can have a trainer that, says, hey, you're eating 6 ounces of chicken. We need to make some changes. Let's bump that up to 8 ounces of chicken. And the client, you don't know, they might bump it down to 4 ounces of chicken. Right. And they're like, we're losing weight after we bumped it to 8 ounces. And you want to pull your hair out because you're like, this doesn't make sense. And it's only because they're not following it. So.
Well, and that's the thing is I could understand a trainer's or coach's apprehension of sending them to a supplement store that might have motivation to sell them something that's not on the list.
It throws a whole other variable into the equation. Yeah.
Right. And so you have to show them and prove to them like, hey, not only am I going to take good care of your people, I'm going to take good care of you.
Right.
Like I'm going to, when somebody comes, like the going thing is like somebody will come in and be like, hey, I'm from like this person sent me, they said I should like get this, but I don't know. I'm thinking about getting this. What do you recommend? I go, whatever your coach tells you to do, whatever your trainer wants you to do, because they might have a specific reason to have you on something that maybe I don't understand or I don't know about. So it's not my job right now to correct what I think this coach is doing correct or incorrectly. Like that's not my place. Like my place is to just help provide you with the things that your coach recommended for you.
I think that can be somewhat of a mental barrier for newer employees as well, as you get in this mindset of I just want to help everybody that I can. And it's if you have someone in that's working with a coach and they may be getting advice or recommendations that maybe aren't the greatest. Or at least from your viewpoint, you're like, man, that's just
on the surface level. It's like, this doesn't necessarily make sense.
Right. Exactly. It could be even black and white. That's wrong.
Right.
Obviously that doesn't actually happen in real life, but like, let's say there's a scenario where it comes in and black and white, you're not doing the right thing. Your coach is not having you do the right thing. And
I take my pre-workout after my workout because I heard it's better. That's what my coach told me to do.
That is black and white wrong. But
Try to think of an example that wouldn't step on anybody's toes.
that's a good one, dude. I bet there's an argument out there of why you should take your pre-workout, post-workout.
Yeah. No, they got it wrong naming it.
Yeah. I have several stories that just popped into my head. Gosh, where was I going on this? I am getting a little wormed out.
Yeah, well, no legs, just wiggling. No, you were just talking about like newer employees taking customers.
Oh,
that,
right.
Like when things are wrong or they don't necessarily think it's the correct thing.
Right, is they want to take the opportunity to correct the situation, which they might be able to take a situation that is black and white wrong and make it black and white right. Mm-hmm. But if that coach finds out that we changed one of their recommendations, they're not going to send that person or any of their other people over to us again because we're changing what they're recommending.
Right. We
are happy that they are sending them to us in the first place.
Yep.
If we're not allowed to make any recommendations, that's fine. We can, if there's any wiggle room at all, if there's like, hey, my coach told me to get one of these 2 proteins, which one would you recommend?
Sure.
Great. We have at least one opportunity to make a positive change.
Yeah.
Is we only take as much freedom with our recommendations as we're given permission from those coaches. And it is tough for an employee. Like, it's like, hey, this person is coming in and their coach is recommending the wrong thing. You're not allowed to tell them anything else because we will potentially lose any opportunity in the future. We have to prioritize them sending people to us over being able to make recommendations that we want.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's like, you know, and I've also, and this takes a long time and you have to build that friendship and understanding, but I've had trainers and coaches that I've like talked to when they come in the store and I've sampled them stuff or whatever onto stuff that I thought would be better for their clients. Mm-hmm. And then they were able to make that change on their end. And then the next time the person comes in, they're like, oh yeah, no, I think this is like one of the common ones is people come in for like casein protein. And the thing is, it's just like, to be honest, like casein protein just isn't, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not nearly as popular as it used to be. Mm-hmm. So we've got 4 options, right?
Right.
But in that same space, you could, most cases, not all, but most cases, use a whey casein blend, which is exceptionally popular right now. And we have tons of options for that. So,
and there's reasons we like that more.
Right.
But is the trainer okay with recommending?
Right. And, you know, maybe the trainer's got some other idea of why they're using it for X, Y, and Z.
Sure.
And so it's like, it's not my job at that point for every, you know, person who comes in for casein to be like, from a trainer to be like, no, you should be taking a blend just because there's more options. It's like, no, like, I've had conversations with the trainer. Hey, what do you think about this? Like, I've sent messages to trainers before that I have good relationships with. And it's like, hey, I know you recommend. And I think they always kind of like, especially when you go to them, always take like, it always goes well because they seem to appreciate the fact that like,
you're checking in with them before you're changing your recommendations to them.
Right. Is being like, hey, I noticed that like I've had multiple people in from you grabbing casein protein. We definitely have casein. So like if that's what you want to keep them on, totally have it. But just so you know, like we have a lot more options when it comes to whey casein blends. And like, you know, if you're using it for like an evening shake or before bed shake to get that trickle effect, like this is going to do that same thing for them. They're going to have a lot more options, a little bit more multi-use protein for them. And most trainers I've ever talked to, I think probably every one of them has been like, oh no, that totally makes sense. Like I appreciate it. Yeah, you can totally tell them that's fine. And it's like, cool. Well now, like when they come in, whether it's better or whatever, now it's like, cool, I've at least opened your options to other things.
And not to mention you can relate to that client that's coming in looking for casein, like, hey, like I did actually talk to so-and-so. They did actually give me the go ahead. So here's our casein options if you are wanting to stick with that.
I know this is coach approved.
Yeah, these are also coach approved as well.
Right.
So, yep.
Exactly. Well, and it's funny because like, again, these are just, I won't spare too many details on it, but like one time I'd heard of somebody who was working with a coach and they had, I believe either recently fired the coach or they were about to fire their trainer because like they had not seen any results. And upon further investigation of talking to this person, they were drinking a half a gallon of fruit juice a day. A day. It's something like 280 grams of sugar. But this is...
The coach didn't recommend that.
The coach did not recommend that. You know, and I don't even necessarily blame this person for doing it. I think that they just had a misunderstanding of like, you know, there's a lot of people... I think we could start the subject of like the failed attempts of teaching like nutrition in schools. But it's like this person was just under the assumption that that was fine. Like it's a healthy option. And it's like, and I see their logic. Right. But it's like, well, okay, you know, fruit juice can be okay at like certain times and, you know, like for certain reasons, but a half a gallon a day on a weight loss program, it's not going to work very well at all. They don't realize
how much of a role that's playing in the diet that you've been given.
Right. But again, ultimately fell on the coach's responsibility for not knowing. Yeah. And how would they? You know what I mean? Like, where it's like one of the other common ones that I've heard before was somebody had their client. Apparently, their client was tracking no trace macros at all. Like it was only like main macro. So it was like, you know, if they were eating, you know, I don't know, steak, they weren't counting the fat. They were just counting the protein. They weren't counting the trace macros, and they weren't counting any macros from any sauces at all. Yeah. And so it was like the person was using, and this wasn't anybody with like shouts at it. These are just stories I've heard from trainers. These aren't customers. But it was like one of their clients like was like, oh yeah, because he was like, man, like I just don't understand why we aren't getting weight off of you right now. Is there anything else? Like break down exactly what you're doing. Like every single, like tell me what time you go pee. Like I need to know, like give me all the info. And he's like, yeah, like I have my breakfast, you know, like I have my chicken and rice, I put a little sauce on it. And he was like, a little sauce on it. Like, what do you put on there? And he's like, oh, nothing really, just like a little barbecue sauce. And he was like, okay, well, like what kind of barbecue sauce is this? Is it, you know, like kind of trying to get an idea. And I don't remember what it was, but it was something just like barbecue sauce heavy, you know, like it was
Sweet
just like,
baby Ray's.
Yeah, like just not a sugar-free, not a low macro, anything. And it was something like the person was using like 10 servings a day.
Oh
yeah.
That plays a big role.
It's so much. Like, but you know, and the client's frustrated too, you know, because they aren't understanding why.
And it's those kinds of things are obvious to us, but to the person that only has their high school education in nutrition and health in general, it's those things,
especially if it was from 10, 15, 20 plus years ago too.
Right. So I don't recommend this, but I personally don't typically, I guess I don't really count macros myself personally, but I don't usually take into account trace macros because I eat the same foods every day.
Right.
Because I know what 8 ounces of turkey 3 times a day and 6 eggs and cream of rice and protein powder. I know what kind of results that food produces for me. Right. Where if I switch the turkey to chicken breast and it gets a little leaner, I know I'm going to be dropping fats, but I do that every 6 months.
Right.
So I pay attention to the trace macros whenever I actually make changes. So, but again, I follow that, but it's because I eat the exact same thing.
Yeah. You don't count.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, but if you were in the middle of a prep, you would.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. Yeah, 100%, you know, it's like if it was something that you were like really dialing in.
Where I'm changing things on a weekly basis.
Or a meal basis.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like these things are important and they add up at times.
Right. But yeah, it's I know what these things are going to produce for me, and then it's like, and I know if when I change something, I know what trace macros those are going to. I know what the macro differences are going to be, and the trace macro differences are going to be. So, yeah.
But again, like, and kind of bringing this all back is like, that's how we are an extension of like their training program. Like if we start going in there and adding variables or mucking stuff up, like it starts to muddy the waters for them. And
which is already pretty muddy.
Right. And if they've had bad experiences or something where they're just like, gosh, I'm just struggling with clients, like, I need to take away as many variables as possible. Like we could easily be pretty easily cuttable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we could be a big variable for sure.
Yeah. Understandably, right? And it's like, you know, and luckily we handle it the way that we do, but it's like, gosh, you hear horror stories of, you know, whatever, where it's just like somebody goes in somewhere and they're like, oh, I want to cut weight or I want to gain muscle tissue. Cool. Take these experimental drugs. You're like, what? it's like, okay, that's a lot of variables. Like that's a lot of, but
there's a lot of more basic steps we could take first.
Right. But imagine being a trainer and being like, yeah, I'm sure that place is fine. And then they go in and whoever they talk to is confident and they recommend something crazy. And then that person starts taking it. It's like, how do you account for all of that?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, the nice thing is I think clients typically once they start working with their trainer, they build a lot of trust in them. So they even if they're going somewhere and someone's trying to push them on something, I would say most people, hopefully most people, at least some people, are going to say, no, this is what my trainer recommended. I trust him more than I trust you. But a lot of people are, you are just as confident in my trainer. I trust you. You, and you are here in the situation.
Right. You seem like the expert on this.
Yeah, exactly. And you are here right now. And it's like, there's almost like this pressure to get the thing that you're recommending.
Well,
so.
And like, and again, like, I understand where people are coming from, but it's like I've had people before who've come into the store and they'll be like, yeah, my coach doesn't recommend any supplements, but I feel like I should be taking them. So I reached out to a different trainer and asked them what their normal supplements that they take are. And so I'm here to buy those. And I'm like, oh, have you told your coach? And they're like, well, no. And I'm like, you need to. Like, you need to have a conversation. Like, please don't buy anything today. Like, we're open tomorrow. We're always open tomorrow. Like just have a conversation with them, run through the list with them, and then like see what they think. And then whatever they're comfortable with, come back. We'll have it. Like, no problem. You know? But like if you come in and spend $400 on a whole bunch of stuff and then, your trainer doesn't even know about it, or like you could be messing with the plans there because it's tough because like you have some like, and these aren't, I haven't met anybody local like this. So it's a lot of times like online trainers. I feel like that sometimes I feel like I've come across this more is they have some crazy, like they cut someone down to 800 calories a day. And then that person was like, oh, I got rid of that trainer, but now my new trainer wants me to take in 2,500 calories a day. I'm going to get fat. And you're like, well, no, you're not. Like, like they're having to rebound. Like there's just all sorts of steps that go into this. And it's like, it's tough when, Vincent put it a really good way this weekend when we were talking about some different stuff. And it was just like an analogy that makes a lot of sense. It was as like, when you take a drink out of the cup of nutrition or science or whatever, your perspective is a whole lot different than if you got all the way to the bottom of the glass, where it was like you gained a whole perspective of this, where it was like, if you just took one sip of this, then it would be like, okay, I would have this opinion. But if you actually got down to the bottom of the glass, like you would see why certain things are the way that they are.
It's an old proverb, or maybe not a proverb, but like the old, I guess probably a proverb, but it's the story of the kid that starts going to school, and starts learning math, and they start with just tallies to understand math. And, the first day he goes to school and learns 1 tally equals 1. Next day he goes to school, 2 tallies equals 2. Third day, 3 tallies equals 3. Right. And then he's like, I think I know where it goes from here. Right. And, stops going to school. And then he has a relative that never got an education, that needs help, writing a letter. And they say, hey, I want to mention how many days it's been since I've seen them. And it's been like 8 years. And he's like, I want to, tell them the amount of days. Can you write how many days it's been for them? And he has to write, thousands of tallies,
right.
As opposed to writing it numerically. And it's like, okay, a drink of the scientific class is not the full class,
right? Exactly. And it's just, and so much of that goes with training and like nutrition and stuff because there's like. One, there's a million ways to do it. And that might just depend upon the person, and that might depend upon what they're going to be successful with. And and then there's also like the baby steps aspect to it, where it's like, we just released something today on the Instagram, but it was like on the TRIAD Instagram, where it was like talking about like a hierarchy of nutrition. And it's like places to start and then like steps kind of building up from that, where it's like, there was 4 things on it, I believe, but it's like, those are, like sometimes starting with the basics is all you need, like just a general understanding. Like if somebody comes in for nutrition help, like I'm more talking to them about like the mental aspect of things and like trying to build them up for success and like talking about, you know, how easy it is to spiral if you do something that you didn't feel like you were supposed to, and how like stuff like that's okay. And like, you know, we go into these whole different aspects, but then it's like, you know, and I'm giving a pretty basic explanation of like protein and how it works and why it's important and some frequency of stuff. And, you know, we're getting into that, but it's like, like most of it's relatively very basic, like nutrition information, but it's like, that is all I want you to conquer right now. If you can conquer these concepts, cool, come back to me and let's talk again. Like, and then again, and then again, and then again. And it's like, you're getting more and more drinks as you kind of come. And it's like, cool. Well, like, and we get to a point where like, you will be much more set up for success long-term because you have these kind of concepts now.
Right. What else is new?
Man, not much. I think we're at the 2-hour mark, right? Nice.
All right.
Not much, man. I'm pretty, dude, my legs are torqued. Oh man. Like
you got some recovering to do, huh?
Yeah. Well, it's tough because like, dude, the pressure changes on like your sinus cavity. And like when you're up there for so long and like the thin air, because it's like they open because you're trying to get more oxygen through. And so you like, you just feel gross. But yeah, dude, I probably needed some oxygen yesterday, but we were in a hurry to get back because we were late.
Yeah.
But dude, there is like that is one of the most like daunting things though. Sorry. Is like when you are beat down and there is no other way to get off this mountain than to just keep walking.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing else you can do. Like there's no shortcut. There's no nothing. The only way you're getting off is to just keep going. Like,
can't call Laurel, have her come get you.
Yeah, dude. At one point I was like, bitch, leave me to die. Just leave me here. But yeah, dude, it's dude, that was man, that was this perspective changing experience, which I think is important to have in all things, but it was definitely a perspective changing experience. You're just like, this is nuts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We start talking about like, and that's 10,000 feet. Like that's nothing. That's nothing. You know what I mean? Like in the scheme of things, like that's really not that like much of a deal. Granted, this is not like, you know, again, not to say anything about anything, but it's like, you know, this is not a paved trail all the way to the top. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like with a parking lot and a bathroom up top and like, you know what I mean? Like this is a, like, I don't know how many people I know that like could have made it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like just through like even like
you're not hiking to the top of a hill.
No. Right. Like, and it's like, you know, and again, and this is Vincent who does like has like literally climbed other mountains where he needed like, they had to sleep on the mountain to adjust to the like the elevation that they're at, and, like all those kind of things. And he's like climbing on a glacier, so it's like you need an ice axe and like all that kind of stuff to actually get like you're full on like scaling walls. And when he's like, this is getting pretty technical, you're like, okay.
You know, technical, that's for sure. I've seen some of those pictures that those trips that he takes with Levi.
Yeah. And so it's like, when he says that, you're like, all righty. Well, like, let's hope for the best. But I know Ryan's got some stuff to do, so we're gonna wrap her up.
Got a race in Tulsa tomorrow, right?
Race in Tulsa tomorrow.
Yeah. Keep him busy.
What are you racing?
My bike.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, and they'll say there's just a sanctioned race up there, so try to make a quick trip out of it.
Nice, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
You where are you gonna eat when you're in Tulsa? You decided yet?
I'll grab Qdoba before I leave, and then a protein shake on the way back.
That's it.
Dang. No, I'm literally gonna pull up 30 minutes before the race and leave as soon as the race is over.
Yeah,
so. All business.
Hey man, you got to do stuff like that sometimes. If you want to get it done, you got to get it done.
Yeah, not make a whole vacation out of it, kind of.
Yeah. So, well, cool. What episode was this?
I put 19. I hope it's 19.
19? That sounds dang. We're about to hit the 20 mark.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
This is the last one.
This is the last episode. Yeah, we're done.
It was a good run.
Yeah, we stopped asking how many people were watching the episodes.
We know it's none.
Yeah. But sweet. Another fun episode.
Yeah.
So that was it was good. Yeah, I have got dude, look at this. Look at my heel.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a fun one, right?
Yeah.
Well, dude, the problem is like when you post hole like that far, like literally to your hip, like you're not keeping snow out of your boots. Like there's no way. So then your boots are heavy and like
wet and rubbing on your heel.
All the worst things. All the worst. I was telling Vincent, I was like, because the view was incredible up there, but I was like, Vincent, we have visited heaven and hell today, brother.
That's cool to say you've done that though, man.
Yeah.
Like you said, not just like a little hike like to the top of a hill, man. Like that is a venture.
Yeah. Like, and again, it's like there's like they'd have to, like, if you break your leg up there, like they're airlifting you with like the pulling you just you're not even in the helicopter, you're just getting pulled out.
Yeah
Dude,
right in a basket.
Yeah. Yeah. So well, all right, guys, well I would appreciate it as always, and see you back for 20 if we decide to keep it going, I guess.
Hopefully make it.
Yeah. Right.
Thanks for listening, guys.